By 8 o'clock that summer's morning, the sun had burnt off the remaining mist.
Suddenly, they're exposed to Boer riflemen on Conical Hill there, to Boer riflemen here on Green Hill.
Yep.
And then behind Green Hill, there are 4 guns.
Right.
And suddenly there is this horrific rifle fire and shell fire.
And that seems very near.
That's very close.
Just coming at you.
And gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And by 11:45, all the British who were on the edge of the hill had been driven back into the trench. And it was sheer hell from then on. One of the corporals, in a letter writing back home to England, wrote, "For the next 16 hours our noses were buried in the ground, except when we were firing. Shells are a terrible thing to have whizzing over one, but a confounded sight worse to have bursting close to one's head, as dozens did that day. One man, within a few feet behind me, was blown to pieces, and the trenches were soon filled with dead and wounded."
It's almost like a rehearsal for the First World War, isn't it?
In a way.
They did it here first.
That's right, yes. The sun is now rapidly beginning to sink. Decision is taken to actually order a retreat. Extraordinary. But the most amazing thing is that at the same time, the Boers do exactly the same thing. They retire down the hill the other side.
They make the same decision. So at about this time of day, both forces are beginning.
Yeah, well, just a little later than
Yeah.
this. Yeah. Comment on warfare.
Yes.
The cost of warfare. Let's go and have a look at the grave. Here in this mass grave here, I think many Royal Lancasters are actually buried here.
Where is the trench with the most famous picture of all?
This is it. It's all for photograph.
Around 350 British soldiers were killed that one day. And overall, 1 in 3 British combatants were either dead, wounded, or taken prisoner. It was the most shocking casualty rate to that date in the history of the British Empire. A month later, the British, William Beddoes with them, did succeed in relieving Ladysmith. Back in Cape Town, Ian is preparing to head home. The other mountains still on his mind.
I've now been to Spion Kop, and I started thinking, why did I always want to see that one? He was involved in a lot of battles in South Africa subsequently, and a lot of them were victories. But the defeat, that catastrophic moment, somehow was what I wanted to see. And the South African guide said, "I'm always showing British people around Spion Kop. What is it with you people? Do you like defeat?" And I was thinking, well, in a sense, yes, that is what interests us. I mean, Charge of the Light Brigade, Dunkirk, failure, defeat. Somehow, yes, we eventually win these wars, but that isn't the point. Though, I'm not sure what the point is, particularly with a war like the Boer War. And I'm thinking of men like both my grandfathers, and there's the poem from the Charge of the Light Brigade. There's not a reason why, there's but to do or die. And someone like me who spends his whole life just asking the question why about everything. They just did it. And seeing that resolution and that discipline and that courage is quite extraordinary.
That last evening in South Africa, there was one final twist in the tale of Ian's quest for his ancestry.
I've just received this package from London. PowerPoint presentation.
Hi Ian, I'm Nick. Now I know you're in South Africa, but I've got some information which I think is really important you get whilst you're still out there. Now here's your family tree, with you at the bottom. And you've been tracking down William Beddoes, who's your mother's father. Whilst you've been doing that, I've looked at the other side of the family, your father's mother, Catherine Matheson, or Kitty. Now I know you never met her, but research has shown that the Matheson clan has a very strong base in Stornoway, all the way back to Murdo Matheson, your great-great-great-grandfather. Now whilst looking through the records, it turns out that he was also a soldier. Murdo signed up to the 78th Regiment, the Seaforth Highlanders, and in 1795 he set sail as part of an expedition to capture Cape Town. So a full century before William Beddoes was out in South Africa,
Extraordinary.
his great-great-great-grandfather also took part in a military expedition. So hopefully this is something you'll find interesting and may even be able to follow up whilst you're still in South Africa.
I have to say that is a fab revelation. So he was originally one of the troops who was sent here to take it from the Dutch, and then generations later my grandfather comes to make sure the Dutch don't get it again.
Overnight, Ian's been mugging up on the Seaforth Highlanders. It turns out Murdo Matheson's regiment took Cape Town, having first landed to the south near Simonstown, now a short train ride away, and a few stations past the Springboks' home ground.
Well, Murdo Matheson came from Stornoway, so he's seen coastline. It looks a bit like this, I would guess. I mean, the weather's slightly better, but I would think when they sailed in, they recognised where they were. This was 100 years before the war. This is 1795. This is in the middle of the Napoleonic Wars. George III is on the throne. It's a long time ago, but Scotsmen are still coming down here to the other end of the globe to take towns like this. So there's actually a town called Seaforth. Oh, and a beach, Seaforth Beach. Oh, Murdo Valley. Possibly his? Never know. It's amazing, my great-great-great-grandfather came ashore here. Incredible, 200 years later, the name's still here. Seaforth, all the way from the Hebrides to the tip of Africa.
To get to Seaforth, Murdo would have had to round the legendary Cape of Good Hope, just a few miles to the south. For centuries, this rock where two oceans meet was about the most famous landmark on the map.
It must have seemed like the end of the world to my ancestor, to Murdo. But he didn't stop here, and neither did the British Empire. I found out from the regimental history that Murdo carried on. He went round the corner, left and into the Indian Ocean, and then on to India, and he spent 10 years carving out the British Empire in India. And India is where I hope we're going next. We didn't have to go to India because, thanks to people like Murdo, India came here. The British Empire expanded outwards and came into contact with these worlds and then contracted, and these worlds came with it. So here we are in a Balti house in Stornoway. And this is where Murdo came from. I mean, this is where he was recruited on the great adventure abroad. And he must have seen a poster like this one. This is a copy of the poster, which was a great gung-ho poster to try and get people to join up. And it's addressed to all lads of true Highland blood. Now, there's some question about quite how willingly these volunteers joined up. There was a slight sense that Lord Seaforth, the man who raised the regiment, had said to the King, "I'll deliver you 600 of my people, and it'll be you, you and you." And what we do know, having ploughed through all these documents, including this, which is amazing, it was a pension record. I mean, I've still got his pension record. He set out from Stornoway, but he didn't come from here. He came from Uig, which is in the west of the island, and that's where I'd like to go. I have to be honest, in the rain today I can see why you would want to lead, Lewis. It's beautiful, but bloody hell. It is odd, all these Scottish soldiers. We even had a record. My father must have had it when I was a boy, and it was about there was a soldier, a Scottish soldier, who wandered far away. So maybe that's what they do, really, is just wander as far away as possible.